This is Jared with MetalsPeak. Today I'm reviewing the latest release from Volumes. It's called Via. It was released on September 27th, 2011 digitally and October 11th, 2011 on CD through Mediascare Records. Now Volumes are what could be considered part of the latest kind of djent progressive movement. Basically have a lot of the same characteristics as more popular bands like Periphery and Veil Maya. Have the polyrhythms, the palm muted power chords, the guitar layering effects, kind of the complicated drum patterns and time signatures. So this whole subgenre has kind of popped up in the last couple of years, and for better or for worse, I think it's here to stay. And some of the acts are pretty good and others not so good, and I'm happy to report that this is one of the better ones. So we'll go ahead and jump into the ratings here. For Brutality, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Now again, this is another band that's kind of on the djent progressive bandwagon, so they're not going to be as hard hitting as like your straight death metal or some of your black metal or grindcore or anything like that, but it's definitely aggressive music. The rhythm section with these guys is pretty much unstoppable. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing. It really gets my head nodding. I'm going to give this I'm also giving this an 8 because as djent and progressive X goes, this is one of the heavier acts out there. They really don't use a whole lot of clean vocals or electronic effects, and when they do, they're used sparingly. So, you know, it's really the throatier vocals and just the more hard-hitting musical aspects of it. Even though there are some softer instrumental songs on here, it's still a pretty heavy album. If you don't believe me, just check out the album opener, Paid in Full, because that's a prime example of how hard this thing hits. So, for songwriting, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. Actually, the songwriting on this album is very, very strong. You have the surgically precise polyrhythms, very lavish arrangements, very, very soaring guitar melodies that are kind of laid over the palm muted chords and the more aggressive vocals. You know, really, the best way I can think of to describe their sound is if Misery Signals and Veil Maya had a baby. So if you're a fan of Misery Signals and you're a fan of some of the guitar leads that they kind of lay over the more aggressive parts of their music, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a little more inorganic than some of Misery Signals stuff, but that's the closest comparison I can think of. The top tracks on here for me are Wormholes, Serenity, which has just a killer lead on it and some great guitar work. The Colombian Faction, which has some really great melodies as well and some very well placed clean vocals. Really, the best track on the album is Intake. It was actually re-recorded from their EP, and just a phenomenal song. Very, very cool, soothing intro. Then it just kind of crashes into this just really kind of crunchy, djenty sound, and then towards the end, it has all the stuff going on, but then it has just this beautiful, beautiful guitar lead over it for about the last minute of the song that just completely blows me away. So it's a really, really great song. You know, the whole album is really well written overall. So very, very, very good stuff. As far as production goes, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. You know, there are times where the djentier albums start to feel a little too sterile for me with no low end. I think I've made that comment on previous records that were released by Sumerian and some of these others where, you know, everything's kind of in the mid to high register and there's not a whole lot of low end. So, you know, what I really like about this album is that, you know, the guitar is still pretty muscular. The bass is real good and thick, and it has a fantastic low end. You know, the drum tone is a little more organic than I'm used to with a lot of these djent albums, which is really refreshing to me. So, very, very strong production on this one. As far as repeat listenability goes, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Now, I'm going to admit this album is a bit of a grower. I think over the last year and a half, and I'm guessing I'm not alone here, I've become a little jaded about the djent genre. If it's even if it even can be legitimately called a genre at this point. You know, it just seems like a lot of these bands kind of sound the same and are all just kind of recycling some of the same old ideas. But I really think that, you know, there's something special going on here apart from all the legions of, you know, Veil Maya and Periphery wannabes that have popped up over the last year or so with this. And really the key there again is those lush guitar leads and melodies that they kind of lay over the, you know, the more aggressive palm muted chords and the drums. And of course those throatier vocals, you know, but that's really what hits for me is those melodies, because they're just very, they're very powerful. They're very emotional. There's a rhetorical flair to those that you don't hear with a lot of this stuff anymore. You know, just sound, a lot of it has a tendency to sound kind of robotic. And you know, I think the strength here is that there's an organic feel to this that you're not going to get with a lot of other bands in this genre. So, you know, that being said, like I said, you know, you have to revisit it a couple of times, but every time I listen to it, there's something that I'm going to pick up on, as far as, you know, a different melody or a different way they arrange something. So, you know, while I wasn't real hot on it the first couple of times I listened to it, the more I got into it, it really spoke to me. So it's a very strong album, very strong front to back listen. So really liking it there. As far as the artwork and the layout goes, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Now again, I only have the digital copy, so I've only seen the cover, but I really like the concept of these people kind of walking up to this crater and then being kind of lifted up out of the crater. Very brilliant blues, kind of offsetting these kind of more washed out earth tones, but you know, the cover itself really pops for me. It kind of has this cool, you know, sci-fi feel to it that you see a lot with these types of acts. So very cool cover. That's really all I can remark on, because I actually haven't seen any of the physical copies yet. So so overall, I'm going to give this an 8.4 out of 10. Again, love it or hate it, Djent is going to be here for a while. So I think for, you know, anybody who's a fan of metal or a fan of even this genre, you know, I think the biggest challenge for, you know, fans of this music over the next few months or even years, depending on how long it sticks around, is really going to be discerning some of the truly exceptional acts from the fly-by-night weekend warriors. You know, I think with Volume's songwriting chops, I'd put them with the former. You know, I think they've really got something special going on here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come out with in the future. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.